y'all? Welcome back to Kentucky Fried Wargaming, where two guys who are not qualified to talk about anything decide to talk about a game with hard math and chance. I'm Joe.
And I'm John.
And we are on a quest to do a faction focus for all of the forces of Warhammer 40k 10th edition and their index releases. And it is time to talk about the faction that is the most glorious, the most vaunted, and the best. And we all know who that is. It's the Adeptus
Dark Angels.
Custodes.
Okay.
Did you say Dark Angels?
Shh, no, I didn't.
You mean the Green Wing? Oh my god, the feared Green Wings. Not them. You sound like a Mighty Duck villain. You cannot bring that crap here in my Adeptus Custodes episode.
Yeah, Deathwing Duck. It's fine. Like,
No, Deathwing is fine. Green Wing. Green Wing Duck does sound like something from DuckTales.
Deathwing Duck was the joke. Okay, continue telling me about your Golden Boys.
The Golden Boys. That's the faction we're focusing on. They are a faction that I play. Like, I'm just going to talk right off the rip. I really, really have come to love this faction, both in the lore and in the actual tabletop itself, even though they are a newer faction to the tabletop. They've only been around for a couple of editions like they are. And if we're going to do this faction, I think we kind of have to talk about the lore. If we don't talk about the lore, we're going to go through some of the data sheets, and you're going to be like, why the hell do they have them stats?
True. They are like miniature little gods.
Yeah, it will make no sense. So we have to touch on the fluff for you to be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Hopefully, unless I do a terrible job, and then you're going to be like, click off. But... John, there's a reality here. But for the Custodes, I have a bit of a different take than the general populace. Much like the Sisters of Battle, there's a bit of a meme around the Custodes that they are just like the best boys. They're so cool. They're the biggest Giga Chads. End of story. And I don't quite agree. Like, I think that is right, sort of in essence, but it misses the core of the Custodes. So if we're going to talk about the Custodes, quickly we have to talk about the idea of the Emperor of Mankind. And I can see John's eyes raising like, Jesus Christ, how far back is he going? Well, we're going all the way to
I'm just like, did you just decide to go back to 40,000 years or whatever?
We did! So you have to understand the idea of the Emperor in Warhammer 40k. Like, you've probably seen him in the art. He is the guy sitting on the Golden Throne. He is the guy. He's the god who runs the Imperium.
Yeah, Space Jesus. It's fine.
Well, Space Jesus was Sanguinius. He is different. The Emperor is believed to be a god. And he has been around forever. He is immortal. He is an incredible psyker. He now reaches into every aspect of humanity. But before he created things like the Space Marines, or the Thunder Warriors, he created his own personal companions, because he couldn't find companionship in like the average human. His mind was far too far beyond it. So he sought to create what was almost a perfect rendition of what man could be. And unlike Space Marines who are taken as like prepubescent boys, he started taking infants at like baby ages, and then individually started to craft them through arcane genetic alchemy into the pinnacle of what humans could be, beyond Space Marines, beyond Thunder Warriors, these hulking 9-foot tall pieces of art. And then instead of making them mindless killers, made them experts in everything. They're experts in art. They are experts in geography. They are experts in strategy. They are experts in diplomacy. They are experts in geopolitics. They are experts in philosophy. They are experts in war. They are experts in crafts. They, like, beautiful minds.
So, if they're experts in everything, can they tell me what happened to the Thunder Warriors?
Sure can. They were told to kill them, and they did.
Whoopie whoopie doopie.
And because you think of all this, you're like, wow, they must be really cool. Like, they must run everything. But they don't. And this is where I differ from the general idea of the Custodes. Because they are. Like, in the modern day, they are the personal bodyguards of the Emperor. They are the strongest individual things in the setting. They make normal Space Marines look like humans. They are that far above them. And they do have the best equipment. They do have the best armor. They do have the best training. They do have the best knowledge. But all of that greatness only exists within a tiny box of purpose. And that is to do the will of the Emperor, who died. I mean, he sits unspeaking on a throne he can never get off of.
In all functional ways, he's dead.
He's dead. I mean, he is. And they are bound to his will with such a tight leash that they can never question him. They are like demons of him. They do his will, and that is it. All of their greatness only exists to serve him, and they will never have agency, they will never have free will, they will never have joy, they will never have satisfaction. Only duty to an unspeaking, cruel god. And I think that makes them wonderful and tragic, but also they are big, tough boys who, boy howdy, when they go to war, is it rough.
Big tough boys.
Yes.
Really, we're like, we've been making this joke for years, but we really are into 40K for one reason. That's big men and big feelings.
Yes.
100%.
I mean, most of Horus Heresy are big men talking about their huge feelings, and I'm here for it. I love it.
Yeah.
It's great. I like seeing things wax philosophically, and the Custodes are experts at doing that. They're wonderful. And all of that comes through on the tabletop with some stats that are nuts. You know, in the lore, for example, like Space Marines fight like wolves working together to bring stuff down, but the Custodes fight like lions in that they don't need squads. We're going to walk out there with 3 dudes, and we're each going to stand like 15 feet apart, and we're just going to kill the whole army. They're going to come at us, and we're going to kill them, and that's the whole plan.
100%.
Because who needs help?
Who needs armies? We've got like 7 dudes.
We got 7 guys. We're going to get it done. And their stats come from that.
And one of the best ways that they show that, especially in combat, is this rule right here. Martial kata.
They know karate. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super space karate.
It is super karate.
It's their main army rule. So, at the beginning of the fight phase, you select one of these stances. And it will dictate, like, a rule to that faction in the fight phase, right? And you're like, oh, well, like, only fight phase, I only get to use it then, that's not that good. But the flexibility here really benefits you. I mean, being able to make your opponent subtract 1 to the hit rolls when they fight them when they're already so defensive is very, very, very good.
That's painful in some cases.
When you have a literal monster truck for a dude, and then you can give him his sustained hits 1, that means he's going to monster truck harder.
Yeah.
Which is great. Like, he's going to run over them just completely. And then lethal hits, which I think is the one that's probably going to be used the least, but allows them to like flex into dealing with things like vehicles and higher toughness monsters and stuff.
Yeah.
Which is very useful. Like, the option is there, which is, it's always better to have an option than to not have one.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that they've mastered like multiple martial arts, this is it. Whatever situation they're in, they've got a trick up their sleeve. This shows it perfectly. And there are ways in the book to double up on these buffs, or triple up, where you have all 3 at once on a unit. It's very good. But that's not all. Then we get into their detachment rule, which you can see over there. It's very simple, but with a lot of the rules getting thrown around this edition, I think it's going to come in clutch. And that is that all Adeptus Custodes in your army have a 4-up, feel no pain, against mortal wounds. 4-up.
Very good.
So 50% of mortal wounds they get thrown at them, just not going to take it.
Somebody has a really cool devastating wounds combo.
Too bad.
Probably not going to kill these Custodes.
Sorry, I got really big. My rippling pectorals have said no.
Sorry, I put on enough baby oil to stop that. No, thank you.
It just slides off, really. It's bad. And these things together, like, they are very simple rules, but when you apply them to the sheets that they get access to, that's where things start to crank up a little bit. Because the Custodes, there are not very many of them that come to any given battlefield. There are a lot of things going on that they need to address all across the galaxy. But they don't need a lot of guys to do the work of an army. And I think it's time to just get into the sheets to talk about why.
Yeah, tell me about your favorite boys. Because these are your favorite boys.
I do love them. I love them a whole lot. And it's hard to say that they're like my favorite faction, but by God, they're up there. I read a book called Watchers of the Throne. I think it's by Gav Thorpe. That was just delightful and changed my outlook on this whole faction and made me fall in love with them. And if I'm going to talk about them, I have to talk about the foot troop that represents it all, right? Like the heart of the force, the thing I have never gone a game without taking at least one unit of in all of my matches with them. And that's over there, the Custodian Guard. Let me make it clear. These are the base foot troops.
Yeah.
These are the worst unit in the book, technically speaking. Now, they're very good for what they do, but like in the fluff, these are the least distinguished dudes on the field. And let's just take a quick peruse through the stat line. They move 6 inches.
That's average.
That sounds good for a Space Marine.
That's what everyone tells me. 6 inches is average.
Yeah, totally average. 6 inches, something like that. They are toughness 6. The average Space Marine is toughness 4. Toughness 6 is incredible. And then 2-up save. They're all in Terminator armor equivalents. The whole force.
Yeah, like artificer armor, like this old, ancient, like relic armor.
Yes, that is custom made for them. Nothing off the shelf. Every bit of it is made for their body.
It's like orthopedics, but for like combat.
And made of adamantium. 2-up. 3 wounds apiece. The equivalent of like big aggressors or terminators from Space Marines. Leadership 6, making them very difficult to break at an objective control value of 2. And all of that is very, very helpful because they rock a giant power spear with a machine gun. I love the Guardian Spear. It's
your favorite thing.
I love it. I like spears. I like big bolters, and you put a bolter on a power spear. I wish I had one to hold up like John's bolter, but our buddy Lucas is going to make me one for set dressing, but he's got so much cool stuff to make. But the Guardian Spear is probably the thing you're going to take most of the time, and it shoots really well. It shoots at 2 damage and -1 rend. That is better than any bolter we have seen. And it gets 5 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 7, -2 AP, 2 damage. And that's before any buffs. That's before any karate. Also, Custodian Guard can deep strike. Again, basic troops. Also, they get a couple of special abilities that can come in pretty clutch. Stand Vigil. It's one of the things that makes them the workhorse of this force. Each time a model with this unit makes an attack, you re-roll wound rolls of 1 just all the time. Always. Which is great on something like this that is maybe going to have to punch up on harder, tougher units than it maybe necessarily wants to.
Yeah, it lets them flex in a little bit. It's really good.
Yeah, so whatever challenge they come across, they're going to have a chance to try to punch through because they have to. They're the biggest boys. But also, if this unit is within range of an objective marker that you control, meaning they're defending the base and standing vigil at some piece of ground you have taken, you re-roll all of your wound rolls. John, all of them.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to process it slowly. Like, you're saying a lot of things about these boys that make them very, very good.
Yeah, John did not read this one really deeply because he's like, oh yeah, Joe has it. Like, Joe loves these boys. And I'm watching him process it in real time. Because he's going to have to fight this in 2 weeks.
You mean win against us in 2 weeks? I'm going to send normal-ass dudes against these Custodes, and I'm going to watch as they just, like, crumple.
You're going to drown me in blood. Drown me in the corpses of your guardsmen.
I will drown you in the corpses that you swore to protect.
We didn't swear to protect. Who are you? You're not the Emperor. I don't even know you. And then Sentinel Storm. So, like, you're going to find in the Custodes over and over again, all of the units in the data sheets have a once per game ability, and it's because all the Custodes are heroes, all of them. And every one of them is going to get to have a big heroic moment once a game. And for them, it's Sentinel Storm. Once per battle in your shooting phase, after this unit has shot, it shoots again.
That's just really good. That's just all around great.
Double shoots. And it could be rerolling wounds on those shots. At minus 1 AP damage too. Not bad.
Pretty good. That's pretty good for basic troops.
Yeah, that's your baseline. That's the thing I have to express like the most, is this is the weakest. And that's without any character support, which there are characters that are very good to support them with all sorts of tricks.
But I think that they do have a weakness.
They do, yeah.
And their weakness is that you kind of have to march them up the table if you don't deep strike them.
It's true.
And that means they're going to get shot at, and enough firepower will bring them down. But you can avoid that. You can.
This is new. This is new tech. Yeah. This is a new hotness.
Yeah, so they've always been able to take them, but they've never been good.
Yeah, always bad.
And that is the Venerable Land Raider.
So good.
These exist in almost every Imperium faction besides like Guard and Sisters. Right? The Land Raider is like a mainstay of the setting. It's been around forever. It's this huge transport tank with like these big guns attached to the sides of it, and even like more guns on top. And it can keep guys inside.
It's a brick on wheels. It is a brick on wheels. Yeah.
You can have six guys.
That's six.
You can have six. You can have 6 guys in it, and they just load up inside of this minivan that's got these huge lasers on the side of it that allow you to give some like vehicle punch that you're kind of missing.
And that name of them, the God Hammer.
Yeah, the God Hammer last cannons. Yeah, they're very, very good. You can put heavy bolters on it, which is just great for just mowing stuff down. But really, you're taking this because it's T12, which is really hard to kill. It has 16 wounds with a 2-up save. It's really, really tough to crack. And you can move it up. You can disembark your guys from it, and then your guys can then charge from the disembark with the assault ramp rule.
Immediately. That
is so good.
It's true. I've played Custodes like for a couple of editions now. I started Custodes in late 8th when they came out. And one of the things that does happen from time to time is because we haven't had a viable transport is as you're walking up the table, you get peppered down by a bunch of piddly nonsense, but in enough dice, you're going to go down to piddly nonsense. This fixes that problem in a jiffy. Now you've got to crack the Land Raider to open the good stuff, but you're probably not going to be able to do that efficiently before it's too late. The drop ramp comes down, and now the party bus is unloading. It's a hell of a pick that is freshly useful. I'm a big fan. And I'm gonna probably try this combo at Joe HammerCon here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's really good.
I am super excited for the Custodes. And if this appeals to you, one, go read that novel. It's so good. Highly recommend it.
We're gonna make book recommendation videos, I swear.
We love some of these novels. They're not all created equal, but there are some great ones. And this one is also impeccably audible, like voice acted, and if you get it on Audible. But that's not my tip. If you're into factions, don't you clip that, John. So if you're into these factions, we'd like to leave you with some practical advice that if you're gonna play them, we can help ease your journey. Because let's be honest, learning a new faction can be tough. Especially if you're a new player or a returning player, and a lot of stuff has changed. So John, if you were going to give a piece of advice for Custodes, what would it be? Other than, good job, you're a Custode, you've already won.
Yeah, so have a plan, right? Like, I think Custodes really, really, really benefit from planning a turn or two ahead.
Yeah.
Like, if you're running off the seat of your pants with Custodes, you're going to get buried. Because your opponent can outmaneuver you, they have more models. They can take more objectives easier than you can. They can keep you away easier. Like, if you can't connect with somebody, you're gonna lose.
Yeah.
Have a plan for getting board control, especially against some of the bigger board control armies like Chaos Demons and Tyranids, where you're going to be slogging through stuff you don't want to be using your Golden Boys on. you're going to have to.
Yeah, I mean, every custodian could maybe kill 30 termagants by himself in time, but do you have time to get through them when you really want to get to the bug behind them?
Yeah.
But that's the question you got to solve. And John knows this because, I mean, when you play against each other long enough, you learn the tricks of how to try to pressure the army.
Yes.
And board control is one of the things you can do to make it hard for Custodes. For me, I think my big piece of advice is that elite armies generally have some things in common. But this one is hyper elite. It is second most elite army in the game. When you are playing an elite army that is this elite, every loss hurts. Every one of them. Every custody that falls is really, really painful because they make such an impact individually on the game itself. So you have to mitigate that if you're going to be successful. And I think the way you do that effectively is by using cover every chance you get. Stay behind a line of sight blocking cover, get actual cover to help mitigate incoming AP, obscuring if you can, whatever you got to do to make sure you're not eating shots before you're ready, do that. It'll make sure that you can get up the board and have enough guys left to actually start winning this game when the time comes to go fisticuffs.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think you all of the armies, you got to have a plan, but this one, I think if you just don't, you're done.
It could go bad quickly. It can be swingy. I have played games where I duffed up and I did not see a thing coming, and it crumbled fast. Because you just don't have the buffer that you have in some of the other forces like Imperial Guard or Space Marines.
Yeah, you lose one unit, and that's a large chunk of points.
Yeah, it's different than losing just a basic guard squad. But I think that also is what brings some of the fun, is when you learn how to use these things in concert and execute the grand plan. And I really hope you're compelled by Custodes. If you are, I play them, and it's a new edition, so there are a lot of unknowns for me, especially because especially at the time of recording, there's no Forge World units in the index to look at, which is like half the Custodes range. So
yeah, Telemon Dreadnought is a gorgeous model.
Yeah, and the Achilles Dreadnought, also huge fan. So there are still some questions, but if you have some yourself, please feel free to drop them in the comments, send them on Instagram. We are more than happy to answer people individually if you really want to get into this faction, and we can at all be helpful. We're here to do so. And if you're listening to this and you're not into Golden Boys, no worries. There are other faction focuses we are doing. We are working our way through all of them right now. So please take a look at the channel. We'd love to have some other stuff that might work for you. For now, that's been all of our opinions, bona fide, and Kentucky Fried. We'll see y'all on the next one.